Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just again, a reminder that our chats are recorded and they will be publicly available for viewing on our website and YouTube channel. So if you do prefer, you may keep your camera off during the Q&A portion, and that will follow the presentation. So thank you everybody for joining us. I am Amber Hanover. I am the Community Engagement Lead here at the Museums Association of Saskatchewan. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm coming to you today from Regina, which is located in Treaty 4 territory. I am thankful to have been raised here and for the ability to live, work, and gather on this land. MASS's work and support reaches lands covered by Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, currently known as the Province of Saskatchewan, and it's comprised of the territories of the Naheawak, Anishinaabe, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Métis, and Nakota nations. My land acknowledgement is the beginning of my journey of reconciliation, and it's an expression of my gratitude for those whose territory we reside on and or are visiting. So welcome to today's community chat. MASS is kind of online personal development opportunity, a chance to network with other museums and professionals, to chat, ask questions, and seek advice. Today, I am happy to introduce you to Kim Bell, Coordinator, Queen's University, and Robin Canham, Conservator at the Royal Saskatchewan Museum. So many museum professionals are well acquainted with the historical use of pesticides in the care of their collections, such as the application of arsenic in taxidermy for the preservation of animal skins. However, a lesser known aspect of its historical role lies in its use of green pigment during the 19th century, a commonly used colorant for a wide array of everyday items, ranging from clothing and home textiles to wallpaper, books, decorative boxes, and even food packaging. So Kim and Robin are here to shed light on their collaborative project that focused on the identification of arsenical green books, the challenges and insights into identification, handling, and preservation. So Kim and Robin will be doing their presentation and with a chance of questions and discussion to follow. If you do have any questions while they're presenting, do feel free to put them in the chat and we'll address them the best we can afterwards. So Robin and Kim, I will pass it over to you.
So I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. There was a note in the chat that the volume was low. Is it okay? I can speak a bit louder, maybe. It's okay? Good. Okay. So hi, everyone, and thank you, Amber. Robin and I are excited to be here today to talk about our work, identifying books containing arsenic in the Jordan collections. Before I start, I do want to acknowledge that I am speaking to you today from Queen's University, situated on traditional Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. I am grateful to be able to live, learn, and play on these lands. The next slide, please. So Robin and I undertook this project in 2022 and 2023. Unfortunately for us here at Jordan, Robin left us for greener pastures at the Royal Sask Museum, but we are still working together to raise awareness about the potential dangers of arsenical books in library and museum collections. Today, we are going to talk briefly about how we identified arsenical books in the Jordan Library collection, including some background on the project and the selection process, the science behind the project, health and safety, and what you can do if you find arsenic in your collections.
So many people listening to the community chat today, they're going to know a lot about the potential health and safety dangers of heavy metals that are prevalent in our museum archives and library collections. These are generally well known, and common examples include arsenic, mercury, and lead in taxidermy, as well as ethnographic collections, And a long list of heavy metals are present, of course, in early medical history collections. But the heavy metals in these collections are not easily identifiable, but there seems to be a wide understanding of their potential for danger. However, many people are not aware that heavy metals were often used in the creation of everyday consumer goods, especially in the 1800s. And what we will discuss today is a green compound that was commonly used in a wide variety of household products. This includes textiles such as clothing or homewares like drapes, pillows, and upholstery, wall paint, wallpapers, food packaging, books, and decorative boxes. This green pigment provided a brilliant and fashionable green, but at the very same time was also being used as a rat poison. So through a study we conducted at Queen's University Library, Kim and I are here today to explain and expose this poisonous pigment to you that might be lurking in your collection.
So first, a bit of background. Queen's is located in Kingston and was founded by the Church of Scotland in October 1841 via a royal charter from Queen Victoria. Queen's is a mid-sized research university with about 31,000 full and part-time students, and that number also includes about 6,000 graduate students. Queen's is home to the only Master of Art Conservation program in Canada, with a focus on hands-on training and experiential learning. The program offers 4 areas of specialization: paintings, artifacts, paper, and research. Students in the program often complete paid fellowships at Jordan, which has greatly benefited us. Jordan is situated on the 2nd floor of the Douglas Library, a historically significant building shown here on the slide. And Jordan is one of 7 libraries located on the campus. And this year, Douglas Library is celebrating its 100th birthday. Special collections include rare books, manuscripts, papers, artwork, and other items that hold unique value and significance in the study of material culture, history, literature, and other subjects. And due to their condition, rarity, and value, these items are not circulated like the main library collections and are only available for use in our reading room or classroom. Jordan is a valuable resource for Queen's and the wider community. We have a diverse range of collections that span from the earliest printed books to the personal libraries of authors like John Buchan and Robertson Davies. Our collections are centered around the extensive Edith and Lauren Pierce collection of Canadiana, which is the largest collection of Canadian studies material in a public institution in Canada. As previously mentioned, we have author libraries as well as ephemera such as broadsides and posters. We also have a large map collection that includes early North American and Canadian maps from the 17th to 19th century. Our collections cover a diverse range of subjects like astronomy, classics, literature, politics, and history. In addition to books, Jordan has non-book objects that add depth and variety to our collections. For example, we have furniture pieces like the Douglas chair that can be seen on the top left of the slide, paintings, busts, and specimens like the Book of Wheat samples that is also visible on the slide. Each of these objects is unique and requires specialized care and conservation to ensure that they remain in excellent condition for further generations to use. So Jordan's book, Poison Book Project began, as many things do these days, with a post on social media. Back in 2018, I posted this cover of At the North Pole, as seen there on the slide, on the Jordan Instagram account. And I should add, for those that perhaps don't know, Green Bindings have their own tag on Thursdays, and that is #Green Publishers Binding Thursday. So every Thursday I was posting green bindings like this one. And in December of 2018, a follower, an artist in the US, commented asking if the binding contained arsenic because of its green color. This wasn't actually something we had considered before within our collections at Jordan, but we quickly realized we needed to investigate further to see if we had toxic materials in our collections. And comments continue to come in whenever we post green books on social media as knowledge of arsenical books continues to grow. So the other image on the slide shows a green foredge that followers immediately identified as potentially containing emerald green. And XRF testing, which Robin will talk about a little bit later, did indeed identify it as containing arsenic. When looking at the 19th century, anything bright green is typically a red flag that the item contains arsenic. Arsenic was found in everything, as Robin previously mentioned, from clothing to wallpaper to insecticides and book cloth. Emerald green is the name used to identify copper arsenic, which was first created around 1800 and began being used commercially in 1814. It was discovered in Schweinfurt, Bavaria, and is sometimes called Schweinfurt green, Paris green, Vienna green, or King's green. I do want to point out that emerald green is different and it reacts differently from other compounds like the arsenic-rich paint that has been identified on some 16th and 17th century book bindings. The cartoon on the slide, called the Arsenic Waltz, was published in 1862, and it illustrates the high cost of wearing clothing dyed with arsenic and literally dancing with death. It is a visual commentary on the toxic elements prevalent in everyday life in the 19th century, and it shows that the dangers of arsenic were well known at the time. Although most products containing arsenic have been removed from public consumption today, they do still remain in our libraries, galleries, and museums. In the years leading up to the 19th century, books were commonly bound in leather, vellum, or paper. Bookbinding techniques really hadn't changed much since Gutenberg's time in the 15th century, when he printed the first book using movable type. And actually, up until the 19th century, Gutenberg would have recognized the tools in any print shop in Europe and would have felt right at home. But as more and more people learned how to read, the demand for inexpensive books grew, and this led to the invention of book cloth, a durable fabric that was cheaper to use than leather or vellum. It could be colored and stamped with eye-catching designs and colors like arsenic green to attract buyers. It is these books that we were interested in testing in our collections. So how do we go about selecting items for testing? First, since the Instagram post in 2018, I had created a database of suspected arsenical books in the Jordan collection. These were books that had come to our attention one way or another, and they were the starting point. Secondly, we relied heavily on the work done by Melissa Tadone and Rosie Grayburn from the Department of Conservation at the Winterthur Museum, Garden and Library in Delaware. As part of their work, they created the Poison Book Project database that included items positively identified as containing arsenic. So we compared that list against our holdings, and any items in our collection that had a green binding or foredge were included in our testing. And we also used an emerald green bookmark created and distributed by the Poison Book Project to visually identify books that might contain arsenic. And we actually then created our own at the end of the project. On the slide, you can see the Winterthur bookmark and me comparing the bookmark to books on the shelves and books in the conservation lab. Also visible there on the slide is the Poison Book Project database that was started by Melissa and Rosie. to visually identify books on the shelves for testing, we started with the children's collection, which we know has many cloth bindings from the 19th century. We then moved our search to the rest of the collections held in Jordan. We didn't pull all the green bindings, only the ones that matched colors found on the bookmark and that fell within the date range of 1820 to 1900. And that date range was something we got from the Poison Book Project. We expanded it a little bit from what they suggested, the recommended dates, and because we were doing paper as well. So originally we were only looking at the book cloth and the foredges, but we expanded our search to include green paper bindings, and you can see some there on the slide, and end papers. So we didn't actually expect to find any end papers, which are located inside the book during our search of the shelves, because we were only looking at the bindings and not actually opening the books. That would have been too time consuming. We have a collection of about 200,000 items here at Jordan alone. Not that we would search all of those, but it's quite a lot of material to go through. So Robin found the emerald green end papers that you see on the slide when she pulled out a book, and the next book to it opened slightly, and she caught a glimpse of that familiar green. Our records showed that it was part of a gift, and we were able to actually look at other items included in that gift. It was from the 1970s, to see if they had similar end papers, and one of them did, and it also tested positive for arsenic. Interestingly, this book was formerly in the Royal Library in Naples and is embossed with the Royal Bourbon coat of arms, which is visible there on the red leather binding. So although we started by searching systematically, we sometimes veered from that path, and we were then rewarded with items like the image on the screen. After we searched the vaults at Jordan, we expanded our search to include circulating collections at the Engineering Science Library and the main Humanities and Social Sciences Library. We targeted our search to call number and subject areas that we had success with in Jordan to make it manageable. And we didn't include anything that was published after 1900, similar to our original search at Jordan. By this point in the project, we had become quite good at visually identifying arsenical green and really didn't need the bookmark anymore. As the project expanded, it became important to us that we identify as many arsenical books as we could to protect library users, staff, and conservators who might repair or come in contact with these items. So on the slide is an image of Robin with a book truck of green bindings that we selected. And now I'm going to pass it over to Robin to talk about the science behind the project and the next steps. Robin, over to you.
All right, well, as Kim discussed, emerald green is a compound that is composed of the elements of copper and arsenic. To detect the elements, conservators and conservation scientists use an analytical technique called X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, or XRF. XRF is a widely used technology and is used heavily by geologists to analyze rock, soil, and sediment samples, and by engineers and the construction industry, where it can determine the compositions of metal alloys and cement. XRF is also heavily used in the field of conservation because it is a non-destructive technique. That means we can detect the elements present without having to remove a sample material or cause any changes to the artifact. In order to use an XRF analyzer in Canada, you must hold an operator's certificate, which is obtained by completing a training requirement and then successfully passing a written exam. This is administered through the Natural Resources Canada. To do our research, we relied heavily upon the fantastic work published by Melissa Titone and Rosie Grayburn at the Art Conservation Program at Winterthur at the University of Delaware, and also with consultation from Timothy Greening, an archaeological scientist from Parks Canada. The library was also very fortunate to partner with the Queen's University Department of Art Conservation, and we were able to borrow the program's portable XRF to conduct our analysis. So I'd like to briefly explain how XRF technology works. And so I'd like everyone to think back to a high school chemistry course. And this might be like traumatic for some people, but just imagine a little atom, and it has a nucleus and electrons that circle around it. Well, XRF technology works by directing a small amount of X-rays at a sample, and the sample is affected when the X-rays reach an electron that is found near the nucleus. The X-ray causes this little inner electron to be knocked off, and the atom at this point becomes really unstable. So to stabilize itself, an electron from an outer orbital comes in to save the day. So it jumps down and fills the opening. And when this happens, a photon of light or fluorescence is emitted. And because each atom in the periodic table has a unique wavelength of fluorescence, when the XRF captures the wavelength, it generates a spectra which we can use to determine the specific elements present in a sample. So this was our setup of the XRF. It was pretty simple. We were lucky that the materials we were working with did not exhibit any condition issues that would hinder our ability to safely test them. So the XRF was set up on a desktop stand, and it had a sample stage placed on top. And this allowed us to place the books upon the sample stage, and they were supported while testing was taking place. The XRF that we were using also featured an internal sample camera, so we were able to use this to identify the measurement positions. And this was really useful when we were analyzing books with a lot of cover decoration, as it allowed us to find a good spot of the green to test. And just to put this image into context here, the circled sample area is 8 millimeters in diameter. So the results for each book are presented in a graph with peaks that correspond to specific elements. The spectra for this children's book is shown here, and as you can see, there are high peaks that correspond with both copper and arsenic elements. And we had some really interesting results that I'd like to share with you now. Of the 150 or so total books that we tested, we have strong evidence to suggest that 28 of those titles contain significant peaks for copper and arsenic. This worked to be about 19% of books that we tested overall, and the date range was 1797 through to 1870. And while we were hoping to find a Canadian publisher example, we weren't able to find one. However, we did identify books that were published in England, Ireland, Scotland, Italy, and the United States. 4 titles we found were part of the, they were part of the library's lending collection and could be checked out by students and faculty. So those have since been removed from circulation and placed in the special collections. We had a wide variety of titles that tested positive for emerald green. So we found 4 titles identified that were made with book cloth. For several of these titles, the book cloth on the spines had faded to a dull brownish color, as seen in the example of The Life of Gerald Griffin in the upper left-hand corner. There were also 2 books made with paper covers that tested positive, and 12 titles were found that had stained emerald green foredges. And also a really interesting find were the paper covered books seen displayed in the upper right-hand corner. These had high amounts of arsenic present, but the amount of copper expected did not correspond with emerald green. And this means that the arsenic present could be due to an actual pesticide treatment sometime in the past on these volumes. And if you remember this book with the brilliant green end papers from a previous slide, well, this was also positive for the poisonous pigment. All right, so if you suspect you might have emerald green items in your collection, you definitely need to be aware of some health and safety issues. Wear nitrile gloves if possible. Always wash your hands after handling them, and be sure to wipe down any surfaces such as a table that they might come in contact with. You can also reduce exposure to arsenic by placing items into protective enclosures such as polyethylene zipper bags. This will protect you when you need to handle or move the item, but also if there is ever an issue with high humidity in your collection or a water incident, it also prevents arsenic from leaching out and causing wider issues. Lastly, to be sure, properly label these items just so that others can be made aware of potential hazards as well. And Kim and I were very fortunate to receive special funding to complete this project, and we're lucky to have had access to the XRF. But as a heritage professional or volunteer in Saskatchewan with limited resources, what else can you do? Well, I definitely start by requesting a free bookmark from the Poison Book Project website for visual identification of emerald green items that you might have in your collection. And actually, last that I checked, the bookmarks were on back order, and I don't think they've sent any out since July. But Kim and I did take a lot of photographs of our own titles that tested positive, and Kim created bookmarks with swatches from these titles, and she passed them around to the library staff in order to spread a wider awareness. So I think this is something that we can probably share with the mass group today as well. I'm sure Amber will be able to post that online with the video. And I was honestly surprised how well the bookmark worked for Kim and myself. The books that we found that tested positive were definitely in the color range that was showcased on the Winchester bookmark. And if you do identify something visually and really want to be sure, the Canadian Conservation Institute will do XRF testing for heritage institutions for free. Now, they're based in Ottawa, so there's probably going to be some shipping fees incurred on your behalf, but they are an excellent resource for us here in Canada. And if shipping away the item is an issue, there might also be opportunities for you to partner with local community experts, such as those at universities, research centers like the Saskatchewan Research Council, perhaps, or even private businesses that with access to XRF equipment and expertise. And of course, you can always reach out to Kim and myself as well. We're really happy to share what we know with the larger community. And at the conclusion of our project, we were able to share our results with the Poison Book Project and their database. So all of the new arsenical titles that we found at Queen's were added to the online database of known books that contain arsenic. Kim also drafted some internal recommendations and policies for safe handling and storage, and the books are now separate from the rest of the special collections materials. They've been placed into labeled polyethylene zipper bags and are housed together on a separate shelf. So by knowing the exact location of the arsenical titles in our vault, we're able to pinpoint health hazards for staff or emergency responders. And identifying information was also added to the catalog records, so researchers and staff in the future can be made aware of their potential toxicity and be aware of handling hazards prior to their access and use. So we're working toward further exploration of emerald green in collections, and definitely archival materials. Actually, they just open a whole new venue of potential toxic 19th century items as well. This includes a rather large collection of stereoscope slides that was recently acquired by the Jordan Library, of which a few of these were tested, and they did confirm positive for arsenical green. And we want to really continue our public outreach, working to make heritage professionals aware of potentially toxic items in their collections. And we're also working on a forthcoming journal article publication as part of that. And lastly, like, emerald green is not the only toxic pigment that was used during this period. So securing additional funding to look at other potentially harmful pigments used in the 19th century would be really beneficial. And an example of this can be seen in the bright yellow color here. It's chrome yellow, which contains lead. So I'd really like to thank the Museum Association of Saskatchewan today for organizing the community chat. It's just been such a pleasure being able to share our research with you. And Kim and I have many people to thank for contributing to this research, especially Rosaline Hill, Natasha Krismanovich, Timothy Greening, Lindsay Sisson, Caitlin Hallchurch, Vanessa Sellex, the Queen's University Department of Art Conservation, and all the staff at the W.D. Jordan Rare Books and Special Collections. Lastly, we'd like to acknowledge the Samuel H. Kress Foundation, Bader Philanthropies, and the Jaroslowski Foundation. Without their generous funding, we wouldn't have been able to complete this research. So please feel free to reach out to Kim and myself in the future. And now we'd love to answer your questions.
Thank you, Robin and Kim. I do see, if you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Robin, I'll just ask you to stop sharing your screen so I can see everybody else. Thank you.
Right. No problem.
And/or if you have any questions, you're welcome to type them into the chat. I do see that Wendy asked a question, which thank you, Kim, for answering already, but I'll just read it out. So which journal do you hope to publish in? And Kim responded, the Canadian Journal of Academic Librarianship. I don't know if you want to speak on that a little more, or...
It's in the manuscript is in the peer review stage and the editing stage. And Robin, I think, can probably speak better to why we chose that particular journal.
Yeah, we really wanted to get our information out of special collections and put it into the hands of the people that, you know, work with these books on a daily basis in libraries. The prevalence, I think, of these books is a lot wider than we think, you know, it might be. Like I said, Kim and I actually spent, I think, just an afternoon, I think it was like a couple hours over in the circulating collection at Queen's, and we're able to identify several titles there that contained arsenic. So, you know, we really only scratched the surface of that collection. And most of these titles that we've found, you know, some of them are rare, but a lot of them are not. A lot of them are very common publications that were, like I said, very, you know, and Kim mentioned, they're just popular at the time, just fashionable colors and things like that, and mass produced. So they're not always considered especially rare. And so they're probably out on the shelves of a lot of private collections, but also in a lot of our public institutions as well.
Yeah, and conservators and rare book folks are starting to become more aware of it, but the general librarianship, they're not. They don't know too much about it. So we wanted to make sure that the word got out about this. And I don't think any research has been done or published yet in Canada on this. It's mostly the UK and the US.
Thank you. So we do have a question of where we can find the link to the course offered by the National Resources Canada on this testing.
Oh, I don't know it offhand, but if you Googled XRF, National Resources Canada, you'd be taken to their very complicated and hard to navigate government website, but that's where all the information will be.
And that's regarding, and just to clarify, Evelyn, in your question, that's regarding to being able to access or take the course in being able to use the XFR. Is that where you'd find that course information?
Yes, I'm interested in one of my collections coordinator taking the course. She's already expressed an interest, but I've just been on the National Resources, many links on the website and can't find the course. So I was hoping you would have a direct link.
That's okay. If you want to email even just myself,
Yeah.
community@saskmuseums.org. With that question, I'll pass it off to Robin and then make sure that she'll be able to help hunt down the link a little better for you.
It
Yeah,
looks
and
like, sorry, it looks like somebody may have found it and posted it in chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Take a
great.
look at that one. And if there's any follow-up at all, Evelyn, just reach out by any means. I'm going to put my email in the chat just so everybody has it. You're
Yeah,
welcome to too, Robin, if you.
Sure. Yeah, usually the courses are run by, private groups. So there might be like a private training, like Natural Resources Canada may not administer it themselves.
Okay, yeah.
But there's a wide variety of places that you can obtain the training. So
Perfect. And that's something both you and Kim took yourselves to be able to
No,
do this?
I don't have it.
You don't have it? Just
No.
Robin?
Robin
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. You go on the website link that you just sent, and like I'm not sure which of these courses specifically targets arsenic or not, but yeah, I'll reach out, see if somebody can give me more information in the Sask museums.
For sure. And Robin put her email in the chat as
Okay,
well.
great. Thank
Her
you.
direct. No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, Evelyn, and we can chat more on the phone too, about it, and I can talk about like my experience and how it went and things like that. It is a bit they don't make it easy. Like you also need to provide like passport photos and things like that. So it is like a fair process of getting one.
Maybe I'll put you in touch with the contact for my collections coordinator, and you two can chat as part of her work, professional development, what she wants to do for the next year. So we're really interested in it.
That would be great. That would be fantastic.
So, and then we did have a comment here about they'd really appreciate if they can have the bookmark. So we did discuss that Kim does have a printable version of it. And I think that's something we'll work together with Robin and Kim at getting printed and making it accessible through mass, whether we mail it out to you or you could come pick it up at our office. So just watch for the coming days and we'll get that developed once we can. You are welcome to reach out to me anytime with any other questions or comments with that, or if you want to be on a list to get that out to you, reach out immediately if you'd like. So just send me an email and we can start getting that worked out for you. I know we are in the process of discussing the additional resources that Mass can get out to our membership, including possibly a tip sheet or any other more information. And also just a reminder that this is a recorded session, so this will be included on our YouTube channel, so and directly on our website, so you're welcome to rewatch and look at the slides for it. So oh, and Jennifer had emailed, she put an email in the chat here of who she contacted for a direct from the Winterher, and they're going to send out a bookmark to her. So again, if you have trouble getting one, or like Robin said, they might have be in back order or what their situation is too. But we'll do our best. So
Does anybody, I have a question for everyone if people want to write in the chat. Does anyone think or has anyone seen or think they might have run across one of these emerald green items in their collection?
Can I actually jump in with a question, Robin?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, hi. So first of all, thank you, Kim and Robin. Amazing. Here, I can turn on my picture. Maybe that would feel more friendly. Thank you so much. This was amazing, and bravo to all your work. This is sort of like, I just wanted to build off of your question that you just asked. What would be some other objects in collections that might also have this? Like, you've talked a bit about paper, but would this be something that we should be looking at in paint or textiles? Like, are there some other key things for those of us who have things other than books in our collections?
Clothing for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the largest probably way to identify most of it right off the bat is if you kind of know a date range and when that item was made. So, you know, if you have a date that are kind of between 1810, 1820-ish and I don't know, 1900, and it's bright green and it's just looking fluorescent and just yeah, you might want to handle it in a little bit of a delicate way until you can get a positive ID. So definitely textiles, clothing, other household textiles, blankets, drapes, quilts, upholstery. It was just such a fashionable color that it really took over kind of like the design world. Wall color, right, Kim?
Wallpaper. Yeah, if you have books of wallpaper samples from the Victorian era, that would be a great place to check.
And there's a great book. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, Kim. Do you remember the name of the wallpapers book? Let me see if I can find it here quickly. There's a fantastic book. Sorry, Kim, you can keep talking and maybe I'll.
Well, yeah, I'm looking too. I'm trying to find.
Oh, here it is.
Okay.
It's called Bitten by Witch Fever, Wallpaper and Arsenic in the Victorian Home. It was published in 2016 written by Lucinda Huxley, published by Thames and Hudson. And that book it's just a beautiful book. They've got reproduction prints of Victorian wallpapers. So it's just a beautiful book in itself, but also very informative about some of the background, how well known arsenic was as a poison during this time. So it's not like people weren't aware of it either. They really did know. It's just you know, nothing was really done, you know, politicians didn't really do anything about it until the Arsenic Act of, oh my gosh, I forget the year off the top of my head, but it was just such a popular thing, just a popular color. It was the only way to make some of these really bright colors was to use these pigments that contained heavy metals. And yeah, so it really can extend to a lot of different things. Does that answer your question, Julia?
It totally does. Thank you so much.
and not to like go to the scary end of things, but in your research of the concerns, and especially the health concerns and handling and having these items in the collection, or say, you know, open to public handling. Did you or can you touch on some of the concerns that might be addressed with handling, specifically arsenical materials?
Robin, I don't know if you want to start, or, I mean, I can say that they did, in our research, we did learn that it can rub off to the book beside it. So that item, or the item beside it, you might not think of that because it doesn't have the green binding. So we removed them from our collection, and they now are together on the shelf in a separate area. And they have kind of a plastic, colibri is what it's called, is what I have started to put on them. If it's on the outside, on the inside, we can't really, you know, protect it if it's the end papers or the foredges. So that's a concern. We also discovered, I think this was through the Poison Book Project, they discovered that it doesn't really go in the air. So you don't have to worry about wearing a mask, but you do have to wear gloves, and you should wash your hands, as Robin said. And I think the biggest concern, chances are you're not going to be exposed to it like you would be if it was paint or wallpaper, because that back in the day, people got really sick and they had to leave their homes. And this isn't quite as much. I mean, don't lick the books, of course. But people do, like, they lick their fingers and turn pages. And if it's the end paper, like, so you really shouldn't do that with these types of books. But I think the biggest health concern would be a rash on your skin if you come into contact with it, and especially if you're susceptible to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and long-term exposure of arsenic does cause cancer. So we need to be aware too, because we work with these things every day, especially myself as a conservator. I might be working with something a little bit more closely for treatment work and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we really do need to think about ourselves in terms of, like, maybe I'm only touching it once today, but if I'm touching it once every day for this next month or something like that, like, that's not, that's not something that we want to do or promote. We want to have safe and healthy workplaces.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I know you mentioned the poisonous book project. Is that something that's accessible online to look at, or I might have missed the outline of that kind of resource, but oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
And it
Thank you.
has a lot of resources. It's a great website, and we contributed our data to the database there as well, because some people don't have access to the XRF testing, which is pretty conclusive. But if you've got something that's similar, has that green binding, and it's on the list, and you already know somebody's tested it, then I think you can pretty confidently say that it's arsenical.
So proceed with caution with some of these
Yes.
identifying factors for sure. So we do have a comment here from Wendy about the worry about treatment with solvents or working with these arsenic green materials if you're not aware. And especially if in reference to disaster recovery after a leak and flood. I know when people are doing house renos and all of that fun stuff, everybody's like asbestos, right? And I think keeping in mind, the other concerns for these things that might exist, even if they're hidden in layers and things, but also, especially after any sort of disaster recovery of, trying to treat, or in your conservation work, Robin, is this something you can kind of address more. I know you did speak on it already with how, you acknowledge your access and, treatment of these materials, but anything else you can add to that? Or?
When they would, like, for example, if there was a disaster, a water incident, a leak, a flood, something like that, the arsenic is definitely going to leach out of the material and into that water. So of course that can contaminate a lot of other things as well. So and just provide an added layer of that disaster recovery in terms of contamination of not only that item, but any items around it that might have also been in contact with that water. So yeah, definitely, Wendy. I think that that's also a major concern for us, is that we need to be aware of those potential hazards and be able to alert emergency professionals and things like that too, that might be assisting with the disaster recovery. Because at that point, if it is waterborne, it's definitely at a greater risk for contamination and health hazards and things like that. So yeah, that's a great comment. Thanks, Wendy.
And I do see if you take a look in the chat, and we'll share some of these resources as well, as we share some of these
Yeah,
more
yeah.
information.
Thanks for everyone for sharing the links. Yeah, really
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything that you want to comment on, or Robin or Kim, anything else you'd like to address at this time? I hope I didn't miss anybody with their hand up or anything. I think we're okay. Okay, like we said, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Robin, any other information that you do require. We will, do what we can and work with these wonderful people who have started this work. And it's really great to see addressing, some of these concerns, especially in our own collections, and what we can kind of look at or look for. So yeah, this is recorded. So do check out our website and YouTube channel in the coming days when I get this uploaded. And once again, I want to thank Robin and Kim for joining us today and sharing all of this information.
You're welcome. It's been our pleasure.
Thanks so much for having us, Amber.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.